I love an immersive film and TV moment. It gives the fans something to really sink their teeth into, like the food trucks in London that served food from Bear. I didn't try it myself, but I love the concept. Or any kind of secret cinema. I went to the Stranger Things one, it was very fun. They recreated Hopper's cabin and the mall. It was a great time. And then I also own a copy of Journal 3 from Gravity Falls. It's the book that Dipper's always carrying, and it's so cool to read. More of the world building that didn't make it into the show. An immersive experience can just take something you love and heighten it even more, which is why I think some of these shows and films have missed a trick. First up, Only Murders in the Building. I was gravely disappointed. To discover the podcast of the show on Spotify was not the characters talking about the case. I thought Mabel, Oliver and Charles were going to tell me about the case they were investigating, and I thought it was going to be cozy and warm, but instead it was just people talking about the show episode by episode. And that's cute for the girls who want it, but I want a fictional podcast unraveling the case. We see the characters talking willy-nilly into the ends of their phones in the show. I want more than that. I want the whole shebang. It could be great if an episode of the podcast dropped the same day as an episode of the show. It would just be more immersive to be listening to the characters telling you directly about the case instead of just watching it outside of things on the show. The next film I want to talk about is Tenet. We all know Christopher Nolan knows how to diddle time. He can diddle and fiddle with linear structures all day long. So why didn't they release two versions of Tenet? A version that goes quote-unquote forward and a version that goes quote-unquote backwards. It would have fed into the themes in the film, and it would have incentivized people to watch the film more than once. Imagine this. You've seen the film, and you go and talk to your friend about it, and you have different recollections of the order of events. That would have been so much fun to realise you've been got. Christopher Nolan twisted time on both of you in real life. That would be like him playing 4D chess. His films are already complicated linearly, but that would take it to the next level. And imagine the film nerds. They'd eat it up, yapping all day about the different timelines and what it means and this and that. It would have been perfect. PLL traumatized children by showing them the dollhouse on screen. They missed the chance to traumatize children in person by making the dollhouse a spooky, haunted house thing that you could go to on Halloween. Imagine they haven't released the latest season, so you don't know the significance of the dollhouse yet, but they let you visit the dollhouse on Halloween. Imagine walking around and seeing all the creepy things that happen in there. You and all your little friends go away and speculate, or it could be a post-season promotional, so everyone that's already watched the show could go and visit the dollhouse for themselves in person. You wouldn't have come away with PTSD like the girls in the show, but you would have come away with something, in addition to all the confusion about the plot holes in the show. I love me some Taskmaster, and I think it would be so much fun to see Alex and Greg step up to the plate and show us what they're made of. I want to see Big Greg show us how he'd handle those tasks, seeing as he's got so much to say on a good day. Alex too, as the person that makes the tasks, I'd love to see how he handles tasks written by someone else. Now, the show does require 5 contestants, and you'd need a Taskmaster and someone to be the Taskmaster assistant. I haven't quite figured out all the kinks, but I think Claudia Winkleman and Ryland need to be involved somehow. Both of them have only been on special episodes of the show, I think for New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I would also love Richard in there, but will he ever say yes? Time will tell. Granted, making Alex and Greg do this for a series might be too much and too complicated, but even if it's just a one-off episode, I'd love it. I think Greg at some point needs to get off his high knee and get to work. This one's a bit of a 2-for-1. I love iCarly and the IT Crowd, and in both shows, they're a fun t-shirt. They should have sold those t-shirts as merch. Roy wears shirts to do with computers and tech, and in iCarly you have penny tees, and they just have fun little phrases that make no sense and a penny sewed onto the sleeve. Both of them would make great merch that isn't too obviously merch, and I would have bought from both of them. I would have happily given my money to the Big Orange Foot, but they didn't want to take it. However, me and my sister, when we were a lot younger, tried making our own off-brand versions of penny tees to sell because we saw a gap in the market. We never succeeded in doing so, but it stayed with me. This next one isn't a TV show or film, but rather a podcast. So I enjoy the Off Menu podcast, and I think it would be so cool if they made a dream restaurant in person. just a little pop-up for a week or two. For anyone who hasn't listened to the show, essentially they get a celebrity on and they talk about their dream restaurant menu, and it can be food from anywhere, homemade food, food from around the world. That does make things a bit complicated. If you found someone with a menu that is easy to replicate, it would be so much fun to have people visit. And there are so many fans of the show, they would absolutely eat this up. One of the favourite episodes of mine is Claudia Winkleman's, which is why on my Patreon I've made a post in which I designed the menu for her restaurant and I theorise what the decor of the restaurant would look like. I'm just trying to bring it to life so people can imagine what it would look like if it could ever be real. If you want to know what I came up with for Claudia's restaurant, there's a link in my description for my Patreon so you can check it out. Now I know that we are all tuckered out of streaming services. The cost is creeping up for no good reason, they are failing business models, and quite honestly I miss Sky. But if there was a Nickelodeon and a Cartoon Network streaming service, I would have eaten that up. I miss As Told by Ginger, and I tried watching it bootleg on YouTube years ago, but they've all been taken down. It's a travesty. Maybe if you live in the US, it's easier to find some of these shows from these different channels, but I think outside of the US, it all gets a bit more complicated and a bit more disparate. I want to watch my cartoons, I want to be nostalgic, I want to regress slightly into the past, just because the shows were good, and they're worth the rewatch. This idea actually came from my sister. Essentially, on the mole, people are all working together to make money, and there's one person secretly trying to sabotage them, who is the mole. At the end of every episode, people take a quiz to determine if they know who the mole is, and if you guess the least amount of questions correctly, you get booted off. My sister made the point that it could be fun if the audience were allowed to take the quiz with them. So imagine every episode you can take the quiz and you can see how far you would have gotten in the show if you had partaken. It could be a fun interactive way of engaging with the show. And we know that Netflix has that useless video game function that no one uses, which means they have the infrastructure for something like this. So I'm quickly interjecting with another idea. I'm recording this on a different day, but I was watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and I realised the original songs from the show are not on Spotify, and that to me feels like a big mistake. There are definitely people like myself who would listen to some of those songs unironically, so I think the team should definitely get on putting some of those songs on Spotify, especially The Night Man Cometh. That alone would just generate so many listens per month. People love it for a reason. I had another idea while editing this video. Imagine this, Disney karaoke. So at Disneyland, at Disney World, there should be places where you can do karaoke to Disney songs. Imagine singing along to the Cheetah Girls, songs from Phineas and Ferb, or original songs from Disney stars like Vanessa Hudgens' Baby Come Back. That's a song I listen to unironically because it is a bop. I tried to do some research to see if it's a thing, and it seems like it's not, which is surprising to me. If I'm somehow mistaken, do let me know in the comments. But I absolutely want it to be a real thing. Last up is First Dates. I love the show. I think it's one of the last sincere shows that tries to match people for love for real. But I think there are people who would go on the show if it wasn't televised, which I know makes no sense because then it wouldn't be a show. Which brings me on to my point. If the producers of the show created matchmaking events, I think they'd clean up. Imagine you could apply to be matched with someone, and then you just go to a restaurant somewhere in the country and you see if you hit it off. It's essentially the same as the actual show, except there's no cameras. The application process might have a small fee, maybe 10, 15, 20 pounds. That would incentivize the production company to still do it because they'd still earn something from it. And if you knew someone who was hesitant about going on the show, but they found out that someone they know went to one of these matchmaking events and actually found love, it might just sway them. I think First Dates is actually really good at what it does, and I think they managed to find people you wouldn't believe exist and bring them together. So I petition that First Dates create real matchmaking events for people who don't want to be on the show. It would also be great PR for them, so it's actually a win-win. So those are all the missed opportunities that I came up with. Let me know which idea you like the most. Also let me know if there are any missed opportunities that you think would have been a great idea. As I mentioned on my Patreon, I've got Claudia's Dream Restaurant all figured out, the menu, the decor, etc. So that's everything I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and until next time.